My name is Mr. X and this is the Extreme Channel, and I am more excited than usual. You see, on the Extreme Channel we talk about extreme shit, and that includes extreme collectibles. And the reason I'm more excited than normal is I get a lot of cool stuff like this all the time. But it's not because PJ's under the table. It's not because I'm going to be drunk on a beach tomorrow. It's not because this is from a custom group that I may be a big dick rider of. I am. And it's because this is my end game. What I mean by that is eventually when I calm down on statue collecting, I plan on keeping a giant X-Men wall. And I think this is the Psylocke for it. In fact, I'm so excited I want to include you guys on the unboxing and the assembly. And I guess we'll have to do some time travel to go there. So are you ready? Let's go. Mr. X here, and we are ready for the unboxing and assembly. If you have any IQ at all, you see that it is already unboxed. Well, you didn't get to witness that, so here's some still shots. First of all, here's the box. It wasn't that big for a large diorama statue, but it was extremely heavy. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 70 or 80 pounds. Here is the top of the art box. I don't know if there's any art on the sides because I never removed it from the shipper. Here's our top layer, traditional custom black foam and straps. Then we have our first layer, and all these pieces were wrapped in plastic. I just removed the plastic, but you have some fingers from the Sentinel and the swords. Then the next layer, we have parts of the statue itself. Lots of Psylocke parts. Heads, body, arms. Layer number 3 was pieces of the Sentinel palm. And layer number 4 was actually the heaviest. It's very skinny. It's only about 1.5 inches thick, which you'll see is the base. And you can see most of the pieces here, but here's an actual picture of all of them laid out. And we're going to get really fancy here with a multiple view assembly. So let's go ahead and get started. So there are no directions traditionally with customs. There's probably an unboxing video, but that's just like directions. Those are for what? But anyway, here we have the base. So let's go ahead and put on the palms first, I would imagine. Decently heavy as well. Keys in. Pretty large key. And it's pretty tight actually. Maybe a tiny bit loose here, but that's probably not a bad thing. Second key is right here. Watch the fingers. Here, let me get you guys a good viewpoint. So already, initially, it's not taking up as much room as I thought it would, which is fantastic. As you guys know, space is the enemy for us collectors. We got a finger here. Oh, that was a lucky guess. First one right in. I'm not standing up because you guys know how I do these reviews. Digit number 2 is probably, definitely not that one. I think it's this guy right here. So digit number 2. Yep. So fairly easy assembly. Everything is keyed in so far. I don't really feel any magnets, which might be a concern. There, that's why it's a little loose. I actually had to move this piece a little bit to get this underneath it, where the knuckle is. 2 more fingers, and I imagine they get smaller and smaller, and I'm betting I'm going to have the same exact practice on this one. You almost put in the I feel like I might need to put in this finger first. I do. Then we'll go here and then set this back down. Watch my fingers. It's not sitting in flush. There it is. Kind of like pieces of a puzzle. And we have the last digit here, the thumb, I assume is up on top. somewhere. Or no, it's on the other side, because she cut everything in half. And I believe this is going to be just like the other one. You actually have to lift the base up slightly to get it in. Perfect. Pretty easy for such a crazy diorama. And then we have Psylocke. Pretty simple. Let me try and give you guys a good view here. I'm betting for the side camera she's probably too tall now. So let me just check that out. She is. So now, pretty easy. So we have 3 or 4 different arms on each side and 4 different portraits. So we will just start with this little lady. Perfect. And here's a left arm. And there must be magnets on here because I doubt they would trust it just to stick in normally. And then we have her sash, which is a tiny little pin. And there you have the assembly. All right, so let's move things around and we will do a review. All right, we got her all together, which is great. I did a few switch outs here, and we're going to go through all the switch outs we have. But this is officially custom quarter scale Psylocke from the X-Men. So let's cover all that. What's the X-Men? God, I hope you know. X-Men is a group of mutants. Mutants are people with superhuman abilities, popularized by comics, cartoons, and movies. Psylocke is a member of the X-Men team. She's affiliated with other teams as well. Her superhuman ability is, first of all, she is telepathic and she has telekinesis, meaning she can move shit with her mind and she can do stuff with other people's minds. But what she's most known for is she can create psychic weapons. That's right. So this blade right here, she can just materialize it out of air, similar to T-1000 but different, and just cut the shit out of people. Quarter scale means she's 4 times smaller than what she'd be in real life. Custom means it was a private commission, usually less than 100 of those pieces are made. This particular one was 65 pieces, and we don't talk about where they come from. They're always sold out anyway. But cost on her was a lot. All in with fees and tons of shipping from China, you're almost $2,000 retail into her. And if people are looking for one now, chances are they're going to pay 25 to 100% higher than that, unfortunately. But I purchased her because I have my ever-growing X-Men line, and this is going to be an integral part of it. I actually have a piece from the same commission group that is doing a whole line of X-Men vs. Sentinel. You've probably seen it before. Here she is with the Magneto that I have from this line. And there are a number of other pieces that you have probably seen in the intro. The Rogue and Colossus, Cyclops, Iceman, all that, all part of the same line. But really excited to finally have her. Let's get the dimensions. She's big, 26 inches wide, give or take. Deep. It's going to be tough. Let's see if we can get it all the way in. That's what she said. 19. Gotta be careful here. And tall, her butterfly is about 19 and a half. So her head's probably about 19 inches tall. So we're going to do what we always do in here is we're going to review this statue, and we're going to use the extreme scale. If you haven't seen that before, it's where we judge a statue essentially on a 1 through 5 scale, except we use it a little bit differently. Here it is, T essentially is a 1, it's trash. 5 is extreme, or one of the best we've ever seen. And I want to remind people 3, the V in the middle, means it's a good score. And we are now using harder grading, so if it falls in between 2 categories, we're going to grade it to the lower one. So let's jump right in with the concept, and that is arguably the most important part about a lot of pieces, particularly this piece. And this piece is kind of a contradiction. So what I mean by that, first of all, it's an X-Man versus Sentinel, which there are a ton of X-Men versus Sentinel pieces. That's the rage right now. To my knowledge, this is the first Psylocke to hit collectors' hands. There's some other ones in the works, so it'll go well with that whole theme if that's what you're doing. But it's a little bit different, and let me explain why. So while starting at the bottom, it is your normal Sentinel versus X-Men with a rocky base. The Sentinel hand is all damaged. She just showed her powers by cutting it up, not only through the middle, but the wrist and the fingers you'll see. But she's doing this sexy, sultry catwalk like it was effortless. She's really showing herself off. She has a very skimpy outfit. She's very confident. She's clean. So it's like she wasn't in a fight at all. So the contradiction that I talk about with this statue is it's a sexy statue, which we're not going to go into the whole conversation or argument about sex selling in statues. But it's a battle action dynamic statue. They tried to pull off both. And I think that's very tough to do. And my personal preference is I would rather the battle dynamic action statue. I'm not really into this sex stuff with statues. People are okay. Are good. Good. They're good. By the way, notice I'm wearing purple like my girl because the chicks dig purple. But so normally I would say this concept is amazing simply for the fact that not only has she demolished a Sentinel, but the way she demolished it, showcasing her powers. She's very badass, but she's so clean, she's so sexy. Because of that, I don't think it's a perfect concept. It doesn't tell the exact same story, but it's damn close. So instead of an X, we're going to go ahead and give her a W. It's a 4 out of 5 on the concept. And this concept has been in the work for a couple years, their entire line. That's the X-Men versus different Sentinel pieces. Now let's talk about the design. And you saw a lot of the design when you saw me put it together, and it went together really, really well. I was surprised, and not only that, but it hides any seam lines or parts, so there's nothing to worry about when it comes to that. One issue I did have is with one of the switch outs, so let's talk about the switch outs before we get there. First, you have a ton of different options. On the left hand, you can have her holding a katana to the front. Or you can have her hand flowing in the wind. Open palm, both look really good. On the right hand, you can have her holding a katana backwards, and this particular hand I have will not fit a katana in all the way frontwards or backwards, so that's a design issue. You can have her holding a katana towards the front. You can have her with a closed fist. Or you can have her with her psychic blade, which is the no-brainer. This really showcases her powers. It's a really cool piece. Plus, it also has a cool battery-operated light-up feature, if that's your thing. Now, another cool thing with the hands, you actually have 3 katanas, which obviously she doesn't carry 3. But if you only had one displayed like I do here, you could stick the other one somewhere else in the Sentinel, like she stabbed it there and then started using her psychic blade. She also comes with 4 different portraits, and the portraits actually are very similar, but let's look at those. So here's my favorite one where she has what's called the psychic butterfly. She's using her telekinetic or telepathy powers. Very stoic, very serious. Long hair flowing in the wind. Then a very similar one where her hair is just as long, but it's a little bit different and she doesn't have the butterfly. Again, very serious. Then the next one with her head turned actually has her hair behind her ear and she has a tiny little smirk. I kind of like this one too. I probably will never display it. But the one I will never display is the final one. I just don't like this one. I don't know what it is that I don't like. We're going to talk about all of them more with paint and sculpt. Now another thing with design is this correct scale? And there's two things to look at. One is Psylocke herself, and the other is the Sentinel Hand. Well, here is Sideshow's Sentinel Hand. Here's Premium Format X23 next to her. And I can tell you right now, Sideshow is not correct. A Sentinel is not that small. Well, is this too big? Here is her versus another custom X-Men vs. Sentinel piece, where still the Sentinel Hand's a little bit smaller. And this is hard to judge and hard to tell because nobody's seen a Sentinel in real life. Those bastards hide. So we don't know how big they exactly are. We know, from the 90s cartoons. We know in some of the comics. I like this size. That's what she said. I think this is accurate. I dig it. I don't like how if you're going to mix with another line, that one's going to be smaller. But someone once told me that Sentinels are polymorphic. They're different sizes too. So I don't know about that. But I really like the size of this hand. Is Psylocke the right size? Well, let's take a look. Here's her next to some license pieces. We have Sideshow's Rogue maquette. Kind of hard to tell with Rogue flying and her legs bent. But here's maybe a more accurate one next to XM Storm. I think it is scaled correctly. In my opinion, it looks great with the other X-Men pieces. The base doesn't take up as much room as I thought it would. 26 inches is really wide, but it's not as wide as I thought it would be, so it's going to fit really nice. One big negative thing I have about the design is the base is heavy as hell. And a few other collectors that have received this today, the box, like I said, was probably 80 plus pounds. The base is probably half of it. And I'm not talking about the Sentinel Hands or Psylocke, just this tiny base. It's very hard to move. I don't know why it had to be that heavy. Very concerning. Gonna have to put her on a bottom display for sure. I think that's a miss. So again, it's not perfect, the design, so because of that, I think it gets a W, a 4 out of 5 right in the middle, because I had issues with the blade fitting, the fact that the portraits are 4 different types, but they're not that different, and the fact that the base is too big are the negatives. However, the rest of the design it's not flawless by any means, because I just stated the flaws, but very, very cool. Now let's jump into the paint and sculpt. And if this is your first time watching, we look at the paint and sculpt together from top to bottom, from bottom to top, the way she likes it, and then we rate them at the end. And down here at the base, on the bottom they have, like I said, this rocky base where apparently there's no green vegetation in the future when Sentinels are there. And the outside of it, kind of this poo shit stained color. I don't like the choice of brown for this. I understand it represents underneath the cement, so the earth, but the earth does not look like this. It should have been more sandy in my opinion. The texture is just okay. I think it's okay. But if you're looking at this part of the statue, you got problems. So let's look at the top of the cement and concrete. I like how it's broken up into different squares like a patio, but then inside the squares there's different breakages. There's good detail, and the different shading of white and gray they used in it is really good. So the top of the base is much better. However, the Sentinel Hand is amazing. Just looking at the exterior parts of it here, one thing I don't like is there's these purple splatches, and I don't know if they're from Psylocke or they're just from the paint job. It almost looks like it has polka dots. I think that's a miss. However, one really cool thing in the sculpt is you see dents and scratches like this guy's been in battle, whether it's fighting against Psylocke or X-Men or sometime in the past, who knows. Really, really cool. Great detail. Look at the knuckles and the fingers, and they added some gold over here to the paint, just like with Magneto. Looks really, really good. On the back is this circuitry. High-tech Sentinel Hand, obviously. But where it really shines is where she destroyed it, and she cut it in 3 places. First is the fingers, and when I first looked at this, I was like, my God, that's bad detail. But then I realized it melted. It melted because of her psychic blade and how hot it is. And that looks awesome with the purple coloring, and they still have some circuitry. And if you don't think so, check out the inside here where she cut it in half. Look at all these circuits and gadgets and cool stuff going on. And I like that you can plainly see this. A lot of times they do really cool stuff in the back of the statue. And the same thing on the wrist where it was cut off. A lot of those tubes and hoses that melted together. One last part of the base here I really like is the Iron Man hand. The light part of it looks really good. it'd be neat to see one of those actually complete. So moving on to her boots, one thing as we look at her outfit especially, you're going to have to remember the theme of the statue, more sexy, more sultry, which I'm not a fan of, but however they pulled it off really well. So her boots, kind of these, I do call them stripper boots, but they look great. I love the high gloss, I love the heels, there's a lot of these folds all throughout, and you're going to see that everywhere in her costume. And even moving up, the detail on this zipper is insane. It is crazy, and they did a fantastic job on the paint. I can't believe it's so clean, especially since right above that it's not clean. A little bit where the flesh meets the boot, too much flesh, so that's a little bit of a QC issue right there. And the same can be said around the bands around her thighs. The paint isn't as clean as you would like it to be, but her thighs are done great. I love the coloring, the shading they used. More of a Caucasian type skin, which is interesting because there are more Asian elements to Psylocke and to her portrait. So you'd think the skin would be a little darker, but the musculature, I don't want to say it's perfect, but it's very good. They did a great job showing some slight musculature, but she's very toned, very fit on her legs. And then her ass as well. I'm not a fan of this because, again, I don't like the sex part to it. The G-string in her ass, and there's some paint opportunity right there, but it does flow with the statue very well. And again, great tones, great coloring. And then back on her front, as my son calls this, her no-no square, her G-string, she obviously shaves, very tight right down there. And then above her sash, it looks fantastic. I love the sculpt of it, the flow of it, flowing the same direction as her hair. To insinuate the wind's blowing it, and they did this great black shading. And then her outfit in the middle, the same gloss blue color in the middle as her boots, and it has this red outline, and then there's some really cool black texturized suit on the side. Looks great, and it really adds to the statue and makes it pop. And then if you follow that around to her back, same exact thing, same exact design on the outfit with the blue gloss in the middle. And as you move up to her shoulders, you can kind of see her shoulder bones out of her back and her top. They did a great job with the flesh tones up here as well. On the front, you have her tits. Again, a little too sexualized for me, but too much showing, but it flows with the statue. And again, skin tones, musculature, looks great. And the same can be said about her arms. And one cool thing about her arms, the straps on her arms are a lot cleaner than the straps on her legs. The paint looks very nice. And then her gloves that go all the way up her arm, great folds. The gloss looks great right there. And then her fingers, the detail on her fingers, a little bony for me, but it looks good flowing in the wind. And the hilt of the sword, check this out. I like the gold color with I can't tell if it's black or brown wrappings. The metal blade looks really good as well. And then with her psychic blade, this looks awesome. I love the shape of it. It kind of reminds me of a shark a little bit, but it's like a scythe, a sword, and how it's all bubbled around her fist. Kind of a spoiler, she actually doesn't have a fist on this one. And then moving up to her portrait, let's look at her hair first, because while it's different lengths and directions, it's all very similar. So it's this, they did a lot of detail in the different strands, and it's a mix between blacks and purples. And this purple color is nowhere else on the statue, so I think that's a win. Good looking hair. And then starting at her portrait, that's my favorite, the one with the butterfly. First, the butterfly, very transparent, just like her psychic blade. I like the fact they used a lighter color. And then a few things about her portrait I like and some I don't. I think they did a great job with the sculpt in her mouth and her nose. I don't like the paint choices on her cheekbones. It's a lot lighter. This is the same on every portrait. And the green makeup, the eyelash makeup, or where her eyelashes are, I'm not a fan. Her eyebrows are fully sculpted in, good definition in her cheekbones. Here again, she's very serious, which I think goes with the flow of the statue, not the fact with the clothing she's wearing though. And my second favorite portrait, very similar, except the hair's coming down around her face. Again, very serious, a lot of the same stuff going on. Same good skin tones throughout the statue. But again, very similar. And then here is her portrait with her hair behind her ear. This is the only ear you can actually see in the entire statue. And I like the fact that she has a little bit of a smirk to her left side and with her head turned. So very similar attributes to the previous two ones, but those are the big difference. And the lip color looks a little shinier, a little lighter. And it could just be the lighting, of course. And lastly, here's the one I don't like, and I think it's her hairstyle. And it's something with those eyes and that green makeup. Again, it almost looks like they try and do a little Asian affluence on her, but it doesn't work. So I think there was some opportunity. Yeah, it's just, I think it's her hair. So those are my thoughts. First, let's tackle the paint. Some fantastic parts of it. I think the splotches on the Sentinel hand, the non-clean lines, the cheekbones on her, I think that takes away from it. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and, it's not an X, it's not perfect, but it's still pretty damn good. I'll give it a W, a rail, 4 out of 5. And then on the sculpt, the clothing is fantastic. The anatomy, I think, is spot on. The Sentinel hand, the detail that went in there. The base is okay. Her portraits are okay, I think. Like I said, there's something I can't put my finger on, and I know Psylocke is a really hard one to do. Definitely 10 times better than Sideshow's, in my opinion. If you disagree with me, that's okay. It's allowed to disagree with people. So, but I think overall, it's not a perfect sculpt, but it's still a damn good one, and there's some really good aspects to it. So with that, I think the sculpt is also a W. So there you have it, guys. Definitely not a perfect statue by any means, but it's without a doubt, if you do the math, all categories were a W, so the overall score is going to be a W, 4 out of 5. It's what we call a rail, not what I would consider grail status, but just under that, something you really, really want, that's highly coveted. Very cool piece. There's some things a lot of things I really love about it. A few things I would have done differently if I had the artistic direction or ability, which I don't. Look at my clothes, I wear t-shirts. I wonder if art directors are well dressed. Who knows? But very cool piece, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts. And here's the most important part. A couple days from now, we're going to compare this one with this one. We're going to do Extrumble, baby. So make sure to tune in for that. Also tune in tomorrow. We're doing a statue collecting for dummies. It is one of my most favorite videos I've ever done. I actually don't make many funny jokes, so if a lot of people don't like those anyway, so that may be for you. But let me know your thoughts. If you're new to the channel, please hit a subscribe so you know when all the cool shit like this happens, and you can see all the counterparts of this statue that are going to come in the upcoming months. Thanks so much. Take care.